founder of the Bonswai Recreation Station. Each week, we hold honest conversations. Welcome to Recreation Conversations, the podcast for high capacity women who lead publicly but long to reset privately. I'm your host, LaTashia Martin, trusted advisor and founder of the Bonswai Recreation Station. Each week, we hold honest conversations to help you reset, refocus, and rise in life, business, and faith. Let's get into today's episode.
Good morning. Where's your microphone?
I don't have one. That's what I was
Oh,
telling
it's
you.
just this one?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning. I'm glad to be with you on a recreation conversation. I'm gonna let you do your introduction and then we'll go ahead and get the conversation started.
So, welcome to Recreation Conversations with LaTashia Martin. And normally I was just cracking up because I talked about this yesterday in the context of the hairdresser's kids are hair is never done, the shoemaker's kids never had shoes. But we're going to still go ahead and move forward with today's episode, which is our debut of the Von Swy Recreation Conversations. And today we're going to be talking, my son's going to be interviewing me, asking me some questions. There will be the similar format that we'll have with our guests, that are upcoming guests. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to him to ask these questions so we can jump right into it. That's funny.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here. My name is Austin Martin, so I'm not gonna go into a whole intro, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into the conversation. Just to start, I think as an idea, right, of recreation, why is that difficult? Because sometimes I think, and I'm going to ask you this, I want your perspective. Success, even though it can be detrimental, can be addictive, right? Even though we know it's the wrong success, it can be sometimes hard, at least in my mind or in my eyes, to recreate ourselves for great when good is so good. So, can you maybe touch on that? Do you think that success can be addictive, and how do you break out of that mindset to start striving for great, even if good is good?
Okay, great question. And actually, I'm going to move this mic over to make it easier for us. Hang on, yeah. I know this is episode one. Don't judge us. Don't judge us too much. But anyways, when it comes to the idea of recreating versus just staying in the good, I think what happens is that people begin to use this concept that I call is normalizing dysfunction. And so when you normalize dysfunction, what happens is that you get comfortable. So it starts out with, oh, that made me upset, but I had this goal, so I hit that. And instead of striving for the bigger goal, you actually compromise yourself and you say, I'm going to be okay with what it is, because for people who have that faith walk, they begin to start bringing in scriptures to justify where they are versus understanding that we serve a God who's greater. Personally, you'll have friends in your circles that'll tell you that, you know what, I don't know why you're beating up on yourself to go any further. What you've accomplished is awesome. So, like, why are you trying to do anything more? And so, when you are not careful about the voices that you're listening to, you can find yourself incrementally going into a direction of good enough versus great because you're not intentional in spending enough time with yourself enough or enough time with God and reading what you were created for, which could be transforming yourself to greater, because everything on the status quo, you're going faster or greater or bigger than anyone that's in your circles. And so then you start to convince yourself that that delusion is okay, and you find yourself settling, which is hopefully you'll transition us here as to, like, why do we stay at the status quo versus pushing to the next. So I think it's more about just becoming, having that whole idea of atrophy. You stop stretching and breaking that muscle of striving because of a number of reasons: your life circumstances, your age, your job, your finances. You don't think it could get anything better because you've tried so much. But good is the place where you're stuck, not greater.
I definitely think that striving is a lifelong endeavor, and it can be difficult sometimes when you're around people who are, like you said, telling you that you're going too hard to, if you're the only one advocating that I want great. Sometimes it's hard to see what that great looks like. I know we were going to touch on that, but I actually do want to pivot and touch on just three different areas just so listeners as well as myself. Right, I'm being selfish today. I want to understand more on myself just so I can better my life. When you talk about recreation, it's not just one area, right? And I found in my life, for the progress that I'm trying to make, sometimes I felt like my ceiling was limited by my floor, right? So at a certain point, I could no longer improve the success in the areas that I want to improve in, that be it financially, socially, whatever it be, because maybe my mental was lacking or my spiritual was lacking or all these other areas are lacking. So, can you kind of touch on how so many people get holistic improvement wrong and how improving areas in other parts of your life, recreating yourself, can create success in what you were trying to strive for, anyways?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. And it's interesting that you say that. So behind us about a year and a half ago, I wrote this book called Ignite Your Great. And there's 3 phases in that. It's self-awareness, it's surrounding yourself in places where you can stay in that state of great, and then it's like inspiring others to be great because you have those other 2 things. But when I wrote that book, it was great to have those 3 phases, but I asked myself the question because of what happened in the fall of last year with my mom having her stroke, and I added a title to my life. I started saying, okay, not that there was a timing for that, but I said it has to be deeper than those 3 phases, right? And so as I evolved and I shifted into this space, there's 2 things. There's this podcast that we have, but then there's this other community called the Vanswy Recreation Station. And inside of that recreation station, I call it the Fab 5. And so, in order to be good in one area, it's really funny because discipline creates discipline. So, the Fab Five is, when you look at your faith, whether you believe in Christ or you have some other spiritual thing, but like your faith, what's those bigger things, those intuitions that you spend time with daily and you remind yourself, starting with gratitude and then thinking about, like, I was probably created for more than my current circumstances. And what usually puts you there is a milestone moment, but that's a sidebar. The second piece is after you have your faith, then you have to say, okay, well, let me look at my fitness, not just moving our bodies, because even if we sit still, our bodies are always moving. But I heard these 2 older ladies talking about motion is lotion, and it's something about getting that your body moving, but you can't leave out your mind. So you have your faith, then you have your fitness, your mental, and your physical. Because I started walking about a year and a half ago. So walking, resetting, and then there's that third piece, which is saying, well, who am I spending time with? What voices am I listening to all day, all night? Did I start with the voice of God with my faith? And then in my fitness and my mental part, was I meditating on that? But then when I started being around people in community, because I was a loner, like literally, I would rock hard on I'm a loner. So that third piece was like, who are you spending time with? That friends and family. Then the fourth was if you had those 3 right, you needed to start walking in the value of what your greatness represents, whether it is in interactions with people where you're serving together, whether it's how you do your work as a job or a business owner, but you need to show up at that full value. So when I say finances, really understanding that in order to be great, you need resources, but you can only attract what you represent. So that's that finance piece. And then the fifth piece, which I still do struggle with this, is fun. So I'll call it a Fab Five, and you don't focus on everything at all times, but they're almost like interlocking like your body. It's a holistic approach, starting with the inside, the first narrative of what am I saying that I represent in that quiet time? And so that is a daily thing. I literally start with that first of the Fab Five every single day because it can change the trajectory of your life because it's a little thing that can compile into bigger things. So I call it the Fab Five. And that's the thing that over the last month and a half, when I had to make some difficult decisions, I had to revert to so that it wasn't happenstance that things would happen. I could respond holistically to those things that happen. So it's that Fab Five, which is my foundation.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And then the last question I just had, just to transition, um, and I was really listening. No, I gotta think of my last question, but it'll come to me. But I do think that that's very true, right? It's that holistic approach, and even the fun piece sometimes can be something where you can feel like you're doing everything right, but you're just not enjoying it. You're rushed into a destination fast, but again, you get there And you look around and realize, oh man, half the fun was the journey. And you have to enjoy yourself on the way there. Um, mm,
No, I think as you're talking about that fun part, especially for people who are goal oriented, it's almost like it's guilty to have like just fun. Like, I think as you get like when you're a little kid, you know how to play, right? You see little kids, they can be mesmerized with like a rubber band for hours. Like you'll see people like they'll say, "Oh, I'm doing tummy time with my kid," and they'll like just put a ball out there. You know what I mean? So that fun is critical and it should be non-negotiable. Oh, your question came back to you? Okay.
yeah. Sorry, not to cut you off. I remember my question. And I'm gonna use my question that moment as a kind of transition into that. I haven't spoke for a couple years now. Sometimes when I forget my question or I get lost in a conversation, I've developed almost like this tool belt, my speaking tool belt. And one of the tools in there is saying I don't know and right passing the mic. That's a tool that I've taken for my speaking journey. Talking about this recreation journey, if there was one tool that you could have told yourself that you would need before you started your journey, one thing that you know is essential to walk this out, whether that be gratitude, let me not even prime your mind. What is that one tool that you think everybody needs in their tool belt if they're going to be able to successfully recreate themselves?
Now, you probably didn't even think I was going to come to this. But to be honest with you, like Austin, like you graduated in 2022 and it's 2025. It took a minute for me to understand the value in it, but I always thought there were two things that I prided myself on in that belt was that I knew people and I knew how to communicate or to speak. Almost to a pace where I was like, I could talk to anybody about anything. But what I discovered having you as my actual communication coach, whether you believe it or not, is I thought I could communicate to everybody, but I always realized I was unrelatable. Unrelatable. And I'm telling you, even yesterday I got emotional. I'm getting emotional again. And so if I had to rewind in the time for all those years, right? Because I'm 53. So it took me 51 and a half years to get the memo is I could talk to people about anything, but I wasn't speaking to a heart space where transitions would happen that I didn't feel like I was compromising how I showed up with my words. And so I think one of the biggest things if I had to do it again, and I always feel like we're all on a journey until we till we pass away, but and even then there's another season to it, but that's my belief. But I think speaking in ways where I'm understanding like why am I having this conversation? And if God created us to love and to serve one another, the only way you can serve people with excellence is to make conversations and interactions with people relatable using the strength that you have, but to serve what they need so that the transformation that happens is not you telling, but seeing that there's value in the way that I'm approaching these conversations. And that used to be really scary for me because if things didn't happen, I would have these stories in my head and I would be like, you know what? If it doesn't work out with that person, I'm not going to try to keep talking to them. If they don't appreciate who I am and how I show up, bump them, cut them out, moving on. And you had like a real come to Jesus moment conversation with me about 2 years ago and you literally was like, "Mom, like, I see you as a boss. I see you as a leader. Like, you need to show up that way." And I didn't even understand what that meant. I just kept saying, like, "I'm so unrelatable. That's why people don't want to work with me, or I don't have deeper conversations or relationships." And through the coaching and the speaking and the consistent, like you working with me, it finally like has hit it in a different way where I'm able to understand how God made me completely, right? Because everybody is made and has their own gifts. Like God created all of us for a purpose. But what you helped me to do over the last year and a half, but more importantly, like recently with some really important relationships personally in the family, with my husband and with my kids and my mom and friends that I had, is how do I articulate in a way that it's in a space like Jesus in the framework of servitude versus me trying to get what I want or me getting frustrated with people. I don't get frustrated with people because I recognize we all show up the best we can, but I didn't have the tools to know how to translate how do I show up so that when I engage with Austin in an uncomfortable conversation, I'm still nervous about it, but my heart space is I'm not trying to change me, I'm not trying to change them. I'm trying to meet us both where we are, but recognizing I have a new set of skills on how to be relatable and ask the right questions or stop talking or looking at the way somebody's using their words or their body language to show up and appreciate them because I never could understand it. I'm like, nobody can stay mad at Austin. Nobody ever gets mad at Austin. They always like him. And it's not like he's not having real conversations, but they were just different. And so now I feel like one of the biggest things that's in my toolkit is being relatable and utilizing my gifts completely, but serving in a way where I'm not compromising myself and I'm valuing and appreciating how everybody else is there, but adjusting my tone and my style to show them that I hear you, I value you, I appreciate you, and if we're gonna work together, that's good, and if we can't work together, that's okay too. And so I feel like my latest superpower has been amplified by the skills that you have helped me with day by day, sometimes for hours, pushing through some like not always great or comfortable conversations, but I just think you have a gift and I'm blessed that you live in a house that I can use when I don't have to keep paying for you because I don't know that I could afford that. But I appreciate that because it's helped me now to say, like these two places where I'm serving high capacity women, whether it's on this podcast where they can be interviewed and I can ask them the right questions, but adjust my tone so that they feel comfortable doing it, or I'm in the recreation station where I'm in that space and I'm serving women, but I'm looking beyond their words. I'm using the skills from your framework to say, well, what are they saying? What words are they using? What question do I need to ask to go a little deeper versus always feeling like I have to tell? And what's been the result is the engagement and the interaction with these women has been phenomenal. So I really feel like you probably didn't think I was going to use that as my answer, but, like, that secret weapon, I don't know if I'll call it communicate like, I don't know if it's necessarily I think people think they know how to communicate, but that relatability factor and really, like, who is this conversation for? Because in the past, what I realized is a lot of times I wanna have those uncomfortable conversations because I was making it about me. Like, I need to be transparent and tell people how I feel. Well, the transparency was causing a block because the type of person that I was talking to wasn't ready for a transparent, keep it real conversation. And if I wanted depth in that relationship to serve them, I had to meet them where they are and utilize like your model and your framework to engage them. And it has helped me tremendously. Like, I don't even walk away like those conversations used to drain me, and I'll have to go somewhere and like reset for like a day or a couple hours. But now I can go from conversation to conversation because I'm not collecting monkeys along the way, or it's not becoming as heavy for me. So really that's been the gift is what you've helped me with.
I don't want to cut you off, but just so that if anybody listening can't understand, it's really just having to deal with less drama, right? So when you're talking, I want to teach young people how to, and everybody of all ages, I want to teach people how to communicate in a way that can make more money and deal with less drama. Make more money through better communicating their value, but the drama piece, that's through creating less drama and through having to deal with drama less long, right? Being able to cut through it more effectively. And it is not always the way you always want to present it, but it's being able to have different types of conversations. And that's the key. Can you have a conversation where you're mostly talking? Can you have a tough conversation? Can you have a surface level conversation? And can you have a conversation where you're mostly listening? And if you can't do one of those things, it isolates you and it doesn't allow you to connect with others or use your strengths. Because everybody's really good at one, but everybody's typically pretty weak at another. And if you can't, it bites you. And I think that communication, I agree. I mean, obviously I'm biased, I teach it, but like I do think that if I could say anything to people recreating yourself, I think I'm trying to recreate myself every day. I'm 21 years old. Like I'm trying to grow and become a man. And let me warn you, like it's difficult. Now, maybe I shouldn't say that. Having a guy helps. It's difficult. If you think that you're gonna show up different than how you showed up for 40 years and nobody's gonna push back at all, I'm sorry. If you think you're the exception, like I thought I was the exception. Trust me. Trust me. I did all the work. If you think it's gonna be easy to recreate yourself, I love the confidence. It's gonna open many doors for you in your life. This one's gonna be a little difficult for you. And so you do need to be able to communicate because sometimes you gotta tell someone, look, I don't know if you could see better in me. I don't know if you even understand the better I'm trying to achieve. But whatever standard you're trying to hold me to is not the standard I'm trying to apply to my life no more. And if you can't have that conversation, whether it be you mostly talking, a tough conversation, say it surface level, or say it in a way that is through questions, so you're mostly listening, you're gonna run into some people in your life who are gonna push you and kick you in your chest back on your feet. And I think I believe it. That's why I teach it. If you can't communicate, man, that's gonna be a tough get up every time. So again, I'm passionate about it. I teach it, but I do think to wrap up succinctly, for those three questions and really you taking the time to break them down, I think that for anybody listening, it did give a very good understanding on, again, understanding success can be addictive, but you got to look outside of others and look at what is this success costing me and what does my success look like for me. For the second piece, understanding that it is a holistic approach. It's no point in having all the money in the world if you're paralyzed. There's no point in having all the money in the world if you don't have your mind. There's a point of having the money. There's a point of having your mind and money if you don't have no family and friends. And you can have all things in the world, but if you're not having fun, you see rich people taking their life every day. There's no point in having everything if you don't have no fun doing it. And then for the last piece, I think that absolutely communication, being able to communicate, get your tools ready. Because on the road, I'm not saying your car not built to make the distance. I'm not saying you can't drive that long. But understand that cars and things happen, potholes happen, and cars are gonna break. You want to have the tools to be able to repair your car so you don't got to turn around and tow back to the town, but you can continue going on your journey to recreate yourself. But I appreciate you giving me the time. And is there anything you would like to say to wrap up?
No, thank you so much for interviewing me today. I thought it was important to demonstrate through actions by showing us having this conversation. I hope that the audio worked. I didn't even test to see if it did, but thank you so much, Austin, for interviewing me. And I know, unfortunately, for the rest of y'all, I mean, unless he has the capacity, it will be me interviewing you moving forward in these recreation conversations. If you would like to be a guest, I do have a list of people who have already said yes, some amazing women. But if you would like to be a guest on the recreation conversations, there's just three questions like we did today. You'll have them in advance so that you're not nervous. But I just want to say thank you for joining us today. And if you want to learn more, even about the Von Swai Recreation Station, you'll learn more in just a moment. So God bless. Have a great day. And did you want to add anything else?
No, you guys have a good one. Thank you guys for rocking with us.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Recreation Conversations. I hope today's message reminded you don't have to do this alone. If you're ready for deeper connection, real conversations, and a private space to rise again, join us inside of the Von Swai Recreation Station. You can learn more and schedule a quick connection call at latasha115959.com/meet. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your story might be the spark another woman needs. Until next time, keep leading with faith, living in alignment, and remember, reset, refocus, and rise.